everybody. We're a little bit later tonight. When the hubby says, let's go to dinner, you go to dinner. No complaints here, I didn't have to cook. Wait just a few seconds here. Tonight we're going to be talking about just a fun little story I want to share with you. And I mentioned this morning that I wanted to encourage you women out there that you are way more than just mom. We always tell folks, you know, you need to be interesting to your children. You need to show them that you have interests, you have talents, you have gifts, you have things that you do that don't concern them. Be interesting to them, because then they see you as a woman. They don't see you as someone who is just there to tend to their every need and want. And we know the wants most often than not outweigh the needs. So tonight I just want to encourage you in a couple of different ways. I want you to embrace your femininity. I want you to embrace your womanhood. I want you to embrace your friendships, your connections that you have with other women. And you know, we did a conference at our church not too long ago, and we called it Women Pouring into Women. And it was based off of Titus 2, and just the notion that, you know, we have something to offer to one another and to be an encouragement and all this, and, you know, girl power, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, I prefer the traditional roles of men and women, and I believe that submission gets a bad rap a lot of times, but there's great power in that, and we can enjoy what God has created us to be. So we're not going to get too heavy and too philosophical tonight and all that good stuff, but I did want to share with you some fun things, and I wanted to kind of maybe get you to kind of let go of some of the, you know, mommy guilt or the drama that we heap on ourselves. And I know I use that word a lot, but we really do have a lot of drama in this world, and we have a lot of, you know, life is difficult enough without adding extra to it. And if we go back to this notion of traditional roles of male and female, you know, when we try and I don't know, take over and get a little too big for our britches, it seems like we have a little bit more drama. It doesn't make us any less independent. It doesn't make us any less intelligent. It doesn't make us any less capable. But I think that there is a lot to be said for fulfilling goals and honoring one another, the men in our lives, and they have a lot to offer us if we're just willing to take it. And if you're lucky enough, you can be just plumb spoiled rotten along the way. But so the first thing I want to share with you tonight, and I think it's important to focus on this. I know this is a parenting site, and that is our primary mission. But if we don't cover our basis, we can't do anything well. So I want to tell you about my wreath story. I've been alluding to this for quite some time, and some of you have heard it. And I told my husband tonight, I said, hey, I'm going to talk about you tonight. You get a little props tonight. Anyway, you're going to love it, by the way. So if you really love it, I can tell you the Etsy site that I got it off of, because the girl is phenomenal. So I bought this wreath for Valentine's Day, my absolute favorite holiday in the whole world. And it was beautiful. And I saw, you know, the picture. She had it displayed and everything, Valentine theme, the whole bit. And in the middle of the wreath was a heart, and it hung right in the middle of the wreath that was on the picture. Well, when it came in, I opened the box, and she did a fabulous job. She anchored it, and I was so impressed. I mean, it's little things like that, you know, her pipe cleaners, you know, holding it to the back side of the box so it didn't, you know, move, get crushed, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's the little things, you know, you got to hang on to some of those. So I opened it up, and I have it here. I want to show you. When I opened the box up, this is how it looks. So hang on one second. Okay, so this is my wreath, and the heart is hanging to the side. It's hanging down low, and I thought, well, gosh, that's beautiful, but I really wanted it in the middle. I wanted to hang in the middle, not off to the side, you know. So I was very careful. So I moved it from the box to the chair in my office, kept it just like this, put it in my car just like this, set it on the fireplace just like this, because this is the way it looked when I opened the box. So this is the way it's got to go on the door. So one morning it sat there for 2 days and I was ready to hang it up, but I knew it was going to take me a minute because I needed to reposition. I needed to move this up here. So I told my husband, I said, hey, before you go to work, can you hold this for me? He said, sure. So he's holding it like this. And I said, well, hang on, because I want to take this off and I want to move it to the top. And he said, okay. He said, but why don't you just turn it like this? And the part fell right into place. And it was one of those moments where, you know, you can't see the forest for the trees. And I looked at him and I just felt so like, really? Like, why did that never occur to me? Why did that not even, and I consider myself to be fairly intelligent, but he said, why don't you, I mean, it was just so simple. And I think that happens more often than we all care to admit. The same week, my son actually looked at my daughter and she had gotten a pair of little skate things that hooked to her shoes. And she was zipping around, you know, whatever. Anyway, my children don't need anything with wheels. We are 2 summers now with broken bones, so that's another story. But anyway, and she couldn't get them to fit. She was, you know, prying. She was about to break them. And he just looked down at her because he was watching all this take place. And he goes, why don't you just press that button and I bet they'll slide apart. She couldn't see it either. So little mini man over here, after Dad the day before has told me, why don't you just turn it? He says, why don't you just, and it's not in a condescending way. It's not in a, it's not putting you down. It's not, you know, it's just, they see it. They see it more clearly. And I firmly believe that that is the case because God created the men in our lives to be leaders. And a lot of time we don't let them do that. And we are so quick to jump into these worldly roles that we think women ought to be. And we just, you know, we bristle and we blow up and we get so frustrated and, you know, all these kinds of things. And they're just there. They see it and it's not a big deal. Most things for men are not. They just go with it. They just call it like they see it and they're trying to help us out and we want to make more than it is. But if we will give into that and just, you know, embrace that with a bit of humor, with a bit of, you know, and laugh at yourself, then we would be a lot more content. I think we would enjoy each other a lot more. We would be in a position to help one another a lot more. And in doing so, our children are watching this and they are seeing how relationships are supposed to be played out, how God created. And when we get frustrated, it's because we are trying to change those positions. We're trying to change those roles and take on maybe, you know, not that women cannot be leaders, that absolutely they can. But, you know, when you're helping one another, when you're in that relationship, letting them do that and then seeing, oh, but as women, we got a lot going on up here and we just get it all, you know, tussled about and frustrated and we just way overthink things. I mean, raise your hand if you overthink something about 100 different ways. And it's really very, very simple. So I want to share that with you. I hope you had, you know, maybe a giggle or two, or maybe you've had, you know, those moments as well for yourself. But enjoy one another and, you know, have things that you do, have things that you are interested in for the sake of your children. Don't let everything that you do be centered around their sports schedule or their, I see a hand, or their dance recitals or, you know, whatever. And, you know, if you've ever heard me speak, you know, I'm not a big, huge fan of ball. And there are a lot of different reasons for that, and we're not going to get into that tonight. But don't let, you know, the harmony in your home or the things that you do, you know, be solely based around your children. Your children are important, and what you do as a parent is important, but what you show them as adults and as a husband and a wife first, before mother and father, is of equal or more importance to your children. They need to see you doing that because that's their trial run. That's their front row seat to how life operates and what am I supposed to be. And you're not raising children, you're raising adults. So they need to know how to function and what does a relationship look like. So you're playing that out. And when they're gone, you want to still have that relationship. And if we are so focused on our children and we have, you know, in these moments, why don't you just turn it? And we let that ruffle us to the point that, you know, we can't, you know, gently fit into these roles that God has designed for us, because His design for family is far better than any one that we could come up with, then we deny ourselves the pleasure of what a relationship could be and what we could do. And when we honor one another, when we, put that first and we recognize these things about ourselves and the way that we're created, we are more apt to support one another. And you moms out there that are frustrated, and when, your husband hits the door and it's just rah, 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 rah. You don't know what's happened in this house, and you just want to, it's just diarrhea of the mouth, and you just want to let them know and get it all out, that kind of thing, instead of reconnecting with him when he walks in the door, and putting one another first and saying to the kids, give us a half an hour, we'll be with you in a minute, you don't need a mom and a dad right now, this is husband and wife, it's time for us to reconnect. Then we are missing out on so much. So I hope that you will embrace those roles, but also embrace the notion that you can sit down and read a magazine. I mean, I know that's old school. We're all on Pinterest and everything too. Don't get me wrong. I kind of love it myself, but you can read a magazine. You can read a book. You can talk on the phone with your friends. You can, have these things that you do that don't involve your children. And I recall hearing a group of women one time during an intermission. It was actually John. He'd come to Columbia to speak, and they were talking, and he had kind of, laid out the same kind of notion and said, well, now I can read a magazine, or now I can stop taking my medication, because she was so anxious all the time, because she felt like, in the course of their conversation, I was standing right behind them in the line at the bathroom, it was, she had teenagers, and she still felt the need to fix them a bowl of popcorn and get them what they need and get their movie. You don't need to do all of that for them. You don't need to do that for much younger children, let alone teenagers. So giving yourself permission to not be mom all the time, contrary to what you may see on Pinterest, that you must sacrifice all and that you must be on 24/7 for your children. Yes, you are always a mother. You will always be their mother. But that does not mean that they need a mother figure all of the time, every second of the day. You can do things. They need to start learning that independence. And, you need to start setting those boundaries so that you can maintain that relationship that will still be in your home when the children have moved out. Don't neglect this one and deny this one also the knowledge of what a relationship looks like by focusing so much on them. We've got enough narcissistic behavior in this world that we don't need to add to that. So, do things with your girlfriends. Don't neglect your children, but do things with your girlfriends. Do things with, other families, other couples. Go out to dinner. Take vacations without your children. Have a hobby, something that they can be interested in, something that they can see. Wow, give your children a reason to consider you the older they get. Because if it's just about them, there's really not much else to think about. And that just, feeds this me notion. All right, I've got a question about being an empty nester, suggestions on being an empty nester. Well, hindsight's always 20/20 there. Growing your relationship, maintaining that intimacy with your spouse, not just, sexual intimacy, but, intellectual, spiritual. You need to have that time that you connect with your spouse and you grow your relationship as you move through these seasons of parenting. When your children move out, if we have, moved through every season and we haven't gotten stuck in a season of service, and I know a lot of families that, with grown children, and they are still in a season of serving their children, which should have ended, the way we, talk about it in context, when they are, 2-3 years old, you haven't started to set those boundaries, you haven't started to hold them accountable, make them independent, that kind of thing. So if you've gone through these seasons and you're ready, the very last season, when that child of yours, that adult that you have raised, moves out, then you can move into a season of friendship. And friendship comes at the very end. And so many families try and put that at the beginning, because I want my child to like me. I want them to have a high self-esteem. I don't want to blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you something. I don't want my kids to have high self-esteem. Because a high self-esteem means I'm thinking about me before everybody else. There's a difference in a high self-esteem and humility and confidence and assurance in who God created you to be. Those are very different. Jill Rigby Gardner, she has a beautiful definition, and she says the opposite of a high self-esteem is a high self-respect. And you can respect yourself if your behavior is respectful of others. And the only way to do that is to recognize it is not all about you. So to move into a season of friendship requires those lessons to have been taught along and along. And because your child has been able to trust you, because you've been true to your word, they might not have liked it all the time, but they could count on your yes to be yes and your no to be no, and you did what you said you were going to do. They didn't have to test the limits all of the time because there was consistency there. So as they move out of the house, now you can be friends. Now you can be, enjoy that companionship with them. You're still their mother, you're still their father, but the relationship moves into more of a companionship, friendship kind of thing. And then it's like, okay, well, when you dealt with this, what did you do? Or, coming to you, because then now they're ready to start their families and things like that. So it's really empty nester starts when you bring them home from the hospital, and that's kind of, backwards. We don't want to think about that when you have that, sweet smelling little thing coming home with you. But 'tis true. You want to move through that and really connect with your spouse and, enjoy those moments together. So hope that helps. All right. The next question was, how do I get my toddler to stop whining? And everybody said they don't. Toddlers are little worms, actually. And we talked about this last week. I would encourage you, I don't know if you got to join us last week, but we focused on toddlers a good bit. I would encourage you to go back and watch that one. But yeah, they're going through that. And the reason, just a quick recap, is because they are, it's finally dawning on them that they are more capable of doing things that you have done for them all the way, from birth to now. And it's kind of being met with some hostility, some wailing and gnashing of teeth, so to speak, Max and his wild things. So you have to be consistent. You have to, in your response to, if it's not okay tomorrow, then it's not okay today. So, your firm, consistent behavior reaction to their behavior, because what you have to understand, and this is true with any age, you're not just parenting their actions, you are parenting their thoughts and emotions, because your thoughts and emotions dictate your actions, how you're going to behave, what you're going to do. So that starts at a very early age. Now, can I, put my 2-year-old in his room for an hour? No, that doesn't work. Those same kinds of things don't work. But your consistent response to that, and not being thrown when they giggle. If, they giggle when you get onto them, and we talked about this before, your voice changes, your face changes, that kind of thing. But yeah, whining, you'll make it to the other side. We all have, and nip it now so that you don't have a 5-year-old, 6-year-old whining and throwing out, because nobody likes that. That's unattractive. So, just stay consistent, and this too shall pass. Pray for that child, and pray for your sanity, and own it. Be expectant of that kind of behavior. If you expect it, then you're more prepared to deal with it, rather than, okay, we're over it, that's not going to happen again. Lies. Do not tell yourself those lies. But yeah, stay as consistent and routine oriented as you can, because they thrive on that. And if they can count on it, they know what comes next, then their bodies get into a cycle, and they know what's coming. There aren't bumps in the road, but the more consistent, the more they can count on it, the easier it will be. That predictability is really what gets you through those toddler years there. So, all right, we didn't have very many questions this week, and that's okay. Everybody's, doing their thing and whatnot. Next week, we're going to talk about grandparents and how to deal with situations that come up with grandparents, either too many gifts from grandparents, or maybe grandparents that are overly involved, maybe grandparents that are not involved, and grandparent privilege. So I hope you'll join us next week. In the meantime, I would encourage you to check out things that we have going on daily on Facebook. And we have a marriage series coming up at Mount Hebron United Methodist that's going to start in September. That's an 8-week series. Lots of fun. If you're welcome to join us, it's going to be from 10 to 11 every Sunday morning for 8 weeks. And some other things coming down the pike. I'm excited this week. I'm heading to North Augusta tomorrow to see my teacher people and do a conference there for the next 2 days. So be on the lookout. We're adding things to our calendar every day. We are so excited. We are praying, and God is blessing this mission. We're very, very excited and glad you're joining us every week. Andrea there has just reminded us that all our videos are on YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel, so I would invite you to check those out. And yeah, join us anytime. If you have questions, you can always message those to us on Facebook. If you don't want to put them out there for the general public to see, you can also email Andrea or myself, who, by the way, is phenomenal. Andrea is our program director, and she kind of is the behind the scenes. She's really my boss. She keeps everything going. So, yes, Michelle, I do speak at schools. I'm doing a couple of in-service trainings coming up in August. So love to speak to my teachers, do a lot of that during the summer. That's why we take a break from our parenting series during the summer. But yeah, love to come to wherever you are. So you guys have a good night. As always, let us know if you need anything, and keep on happily parenting.